everybody. In this video, I've decided to move on from lifecycle hooks and move into something else, and that is services. Now, I know in the previous video I promised that I would do one more lifecycle hooks tutorial, but to be honest with you, when I actually wrote the tutorial for this, it was probably better for you guys just to look at yourselves than for me to explain. So what I've done is in GitHub, I've created down here, you can see my pointer, you probably can't, there's an MVP race link at the bottom of this page here. Now, I'm going to leave the link for the URL to clone it in the description of this video, and you can basically have a look at yourself. Now, I've console logged out all the lifecycle events, and basically you can see in which order they execute. Basically, the thing that you need to know is that initialization at the highest level goes first, then all the children's initialize themselves, then the content is generated inside of all the children, and then the content is overall generated by the parent component, and finally if something needs to be destroyed, it's destroyed. Okay, that's the gist of it. You can have a look for yourself. And then obviously all the checked calls, like do check, after content checked, and after view checked, are all fired subsequently whenever somebody makes a change to the Angular application. So have a quick look at that. If you look at it and you don't understand something, you guys can leave me a message on YouTube here. You can email me in the email I'll put in the description, which is my business email, or you can access my Facebook, Lyra Digital, or you can tweet me. So I'll leave the Twitter thing in the description of who I am and everything else, just so you guys can get in contact with me as well. Okay, so enough on that. What I want to look at now is I want to look at services. So what I've done is ahead of time, and again, this is another GitHub repository that I've left in the description called CRUD, and I've created a simple little table here where I've got 3 NBA players. I've got their first name, last name, and a description about them, and then I've got simple CRUD operations like I can delete it, I can edit it, so I can change this like that, submit, I can add person, and I haven't taken a lot of time just to say best player ever. I haven't spent a lot of time formatting it and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really care at this stage, nor did I care about how the form was bound. As you can see, if I come in and edit, it'll update the information straight away. You know, I wasn't concerned about building reactive forms and all that other stuff that we've already taught you. Okay, I just did this as quick as I could, and just have a quick look at the code here. I've done everything in the one component, which you would never do, and I've created a player model here, which is just simply first name, last name, description, and then basically a whole bunch of methods that do certain actions. Like this one shows the player form, this one removes a player, and this one saves a player, whether it's a new player or not, which has got his new form. And then down in here, I've got the table, and then I've got a button if it's not a new player. In fact, that doesn't even need to be there anymore, but I'll leave it there anyway, just in case it breaks something. But here you go, click show player form, passing in nothing. So when I pass in nothing for the show player form, it means that it's got to create a new one and set that his new form to true. And it's real basic form logic. I'm not going to go through this too much because it's not the point of the exercise. Okay, you guys can pull this down, have a look for yourselves. You've been through all this yourselves anyway if you've gone through all my videos. So what I want to get to in this lesson is I want to actually change all this so that we are using a service. And not only that, I want to also implement something called a promise. Okay, and the reason why I want to implement something called a promise is when I get to the next video where we look at making HTTP calls, and yes, at some point we are going to need a backend server, i.e. maybe a Node application. I haven't decided yet fully exactly how I'm going to implement it, but it probably will be Node at this stage. you will have to understand what a promise is. So that is basically what we're going to get to in this video. So first things first, what is a service? Well, a service is basically a bridge between the content that's in your components and the data that you're retrieving from some storage somewhere, such as, I don't know, it could be an API, it could be you're getting information from memory, something like that, right? So it keeps the separation of worrying about retrieving information or saving information, deleting information away from the component. The component's job is to get information, render it, and handle actions, right? So if you look at the component at the moment, you've got show player form, that's an action that's done based on the UI. Now something like remove player, right? We do need a method for it because we do have an action, but this code in here, where it's actually removing something from an object, which in this case happens to be players that are defined in memory here, this is the kind of thing a service does, okay? So basically at this point we would be calling a service to remove the player, and that player would be reflected to the app component. Same as save player, right? This thing here, this can be moved away, or at least some of it can. This part here, more specifically, can be moved away, right? And it just makes your component look a little bit lighter. It makes it have just the one responsibility, and services are defined to do this kind of separation. Now, if you're coming from an Angular JS background or an Angular background, there is no factories, there are no, what's the other one? You had a factory, you had provider, and you had the service, right? You had three different implementations which constructed things differently, right? Based on which one you used. Well, in Angular 2, what happens is everything is injected through a constructor. There's only one service thing, and basically the lifetime of the service is based on when it was injected into the constructor of the component. So if a component is being created, a new instance of the service is created every time, and basically it's destroyed, whenever the component's destroyed. That's just how it is, okay? I tried to read this the other day to whether you can have Singleton Services. To this point, I haven't been able to see if you can. I'll get back to you guys on that one. But I haven't been able to see a Singleton service as of yet. It is basically the life of the component is the life of the service. Alright, so let's get started on this. So what I'm going to do is, for all this player information, what I want to do is create a player service. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to do here. Now, where do I put this service? Okay, because we've got app, and normally where you would put a service is if this service is going to be used across multiple features and only within your application, you put it inside the app folder, okay, because it's a service that's used across all multiple features. If it's related to a specific feature, then you put it in that feature folder, right, the service. If for some reason it's a part of an external module or library, then obviously you put it inside the module, and then you include that module as part of your imports here. So they're the three options of where you can declare a service. You can declare it inside of another module somewhere that might be externally loaded into this application. You can have it at the app level or the app root level if it's to be shared across only this application, or you can have it at a specific feature level if it's for a specific feature. Okay? Alright, good. So for this example, we don't have any features. So I'm going to put the service under the app folder. Okay? And I'm going to call this, very simple, player.service. Now, player.service, you must use .service. That's just a convention by Angular 2, that if you have the name of the service and then the .service, it means that the name of the service here has to be called player service, and then we just go .ts at the end. Alright, so now we're going to export a class, and we call it player service. Alright. Now, that's not that at this point does not mean it's a service. The one thing we need to do to ensure that Angular can inject this service into any component is we need to provide something called injectable. So up here you go injectable, like that, and this is found inside of Angular/core, and it's a decorator. So you come up here, you go injectable. Oops. And that's all there is to it. Alright, so now this service can be used inside of any component that's referenced or that references this service and puts it in their constructor. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. So we come back over the component and we need to add the constructor. So we go constructor, and here we go private, right? And we go player service, which is a type of player service. And I'm going to let the IDE load this in for me. I'll just move its location because I really hate that it puts it up there. Because normally they recommend in the standards is that you have any Angular external stuff here, and then you have your own library, your own classes underneath that. So finish this off, I'm going to close that off. So now we have this player service which we can access from within this component. So what do we want to do with this service? What kind of things do we want to change? Well, firstly, I think that we don't want to have players hard-coded here like so. Right? That's just not something you want to do. It's not really consistent. It makes it too close to the component. If somebody needs to change who's in there, you have to come into the component and change it rather than changing it on a server somewhere. So what we're going to do is we need to initialize this player's collection though, and we want to get this information back from a service. So let's go back to the service for a minute, and I'm going to create here a function called getPlayers, right? And it's going to return basketball player as an array, right? And once again, I wish the IDE would stop doing that. I'm going to have to look up how to change that. So now we have this getPlayers method. We have a basketball players array that we want to return. So what we want to return is actually what's in the component for now. Right? So let's return this. Okay. So we go return dump. And we'll just tap this a bit just to give it a little bit easier spacing, let's say. Whoops. And save that. So now we have this getPlayers method that we're going to call from a service. Now, so far, if you know anything about asynchronous programming, this is a synchronous operation. We haven't got to promises yet. So, but we're going to do things one step at a time. So here now, instead of actually equaling to something, we're just going to go, this has to be a basketball player array. Now remember the onInit that we just did in the lifecycle events, and I may have mentioned to you that it's for initializing data from services. Well, that's exactly what it is needed for. So in this case, we're going to put in the ng on it again, and just to be sure that we do this right and we follow the right standards, even though technically we don't need this, I'm going to include the onInit interface, and we're going to make sure that the app component implements it. Okay, so now we've got the players. We just have to go this dot players is equal to, well, we need to call that function from the player service. So we go this dot player service, right, dot, and now we've got get players, and that's all there is to it. So if I now go over, there's one other thing you need to do before we can declare this done, and you have to do it in the module. And if you don't remember this providers bit down here, this provides is basically your services for this particular module, right? And because we've declared the player service at the root level of this application and outside of another module, we're going to have to include it here. So I'm going to go player service, like so. Include that. And once again, I'm going to copy that down and paste, and now save. And hopefully that should have worked. Nothing should change. And as you can see, and I'll get rid of all this crap here. If I refresh this, everything's the same. You're getting the same players, as that were there before, except if you go and have a look at your app component now, there is nothing in here that refers to a collection of players. It's coming from the service. Okay, so if we go and look at player service, here it is. You've got your players. Right? So, what do we do next? Well, what we really need to do is we still need to action a few more other things. We need to action the edit button, we need to action the delete button, and we need to action the plus button or the add button. Okay? So we'll start with the delete button first, because I think that's the next one that's on our list here. And we have remove player here, right? So basically what this was doing is it's going, look at the players that are up here and find that, and then basically remove that one out. Okay, that's essentially what this code is doing. Find the index and then remove the one at that index. Well, we don't want to modify this object. We want to actually go to the service and we want to remove it from the service, because the service potentially could be deleting it from a database in an API somewhere. We don't want to do it here because all we're modifying is this, which is not going to modify the database server. Okay, and you'll find that once you do this, this will actually still work properly. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I go this dot player service dot delete player. Right, I'm going to pass in player like so. So the same code or the same kind of thing. I'm going to delete this or cut this. Sorry. I'm going to go back to my service and I'm going to create a delete player method, and that passes in a player of type basketball player. Right. And we'll just grab the code from here. Now the other thing I should do here, I should go, as you can see, this dot players is not here, so we need to have a players of that. Right. Okay, and then this is one way to do it. It's probably not ideal. In fact, no, it's not ideal because it won't work. So this really should have the initialization out there, like that. Right, and then you just return this dot players like so. And down here, now this all works. So if I now come in and just tab this stuff over a little bit, so we can still go this dot players dot index of blah and blah. So save that and just ensure that we've written this properly. We have. So come back over and it should refresh in a second. If it doesn't, I'll refresh it myself. So now if I click delete, LeBron still disappears. Love still disappears. Now Irving's disappeared. Alright, everything's gone. And we've actually deleted it. Now, you might be saying right now, how does this work? Well, technically, you would have to, like, once we delete from the or once this service has been defined as a HTTP service and not as an in-memory one, you would actually have to delete from this players as well. But the reason why it works right now is because this dot plays is actually pointing to the same object that the service is releasing here. So it's pointing to this directly. That's why it's able to detect the change, and that's why it's able to remove it from the DOM instantly. But in the next video, right, when we actually get to HTTP, we're going to have to go not only this, but we're going to have to go this dot players dot and then remove as well, right? So we're going to have to do the same logic that we had in here before in that place. But because we're talking about services at this point, we're just trying to set up the service. This is what we're doing so far, okay? So the last one to do, or the last two to do, is insert. So this is an insert action. So it'd be this dot player service dot insert player, right? We'll just comment that out for a minute, and then basically there'll be an else here. This dot player service, because if it's not a new form, we need to do update player like that, alright? And then this stuff down here all stays the same because this is just UI logic, which we need for our component, so we don't touch that. But basically now we need to go and implement these two methods, right? So let's do that. So we come up to the player service and we're going to go insert player, basketball player, like so, and update player, right? Now for update player at the moment, we aren't doing anything for this, and you may ask why. I'll show you in a minute. We will be doing something for it when we get to the HTTP section, but for this specific example, we don't need to do anything, and I'll show you why in a minute. So we come back to app component. We're going to grab this because we want to insert the players into the collection. Save that. Come up here. And oops. Save. So let's see if all this works now. So we come back over, and if I click add, which I haven't added myself yet, I'll just go egg submit. That still works. If I try again, we go E, F, G. Now I haven't added any validation of this, okay, so that's fine. We click edit. Now you're gonna say, "Oh, how does this still work?" You know, I got 4, 3, submit. Well, it's model binding, right? That's why it still works, and that's why we don't need to change anything. Because when we change the UI, we're changing the model, and we're changing, this model in the service. Now this is going to be different when we get to HTTP and we're calling an API, but for now, this is what suffices, okay? Because we're doing an in-memory example. Now this is all great, this is all synchronous, it all works, we can delete stuff, and that's pretty much how you can write a CRUD using a service. However, this is not realistic. Okay, so what I've written so far, this is not real world CRUD stuff. Eventually we are going to be getting players from a server somewhere. Eventually we are going to be deleting a player from a server somewhere. We're going to be inserting from a server somewhere. And of course we're going to be updating. That's typical CRUD stuff using HTTP. So what we need to do next, because the component, right, this component here, this component should know nothing about HTTP, in my opinion, right? This should only know that it has to call a service, and the service returns some form of details or some form of, promise to us that says, okay, if we succeed, you can do something. On fail, you can do something else. Okay. So what is a promise? Well, I'm not going to spend too much time explaining what a promise is because, if I say what it is, someone else will say that's wrong and so on and so forth. Lots of different interpretations. But basically what it is, at a very small level, is it's like when you give a present to someone and you say, the second part of it is not there yet, but I promise by Christmas you'll be able to put the both of them together, or you won't be able to put the both of them together because I wasn't able to find another part. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it, but basically it's sometime in the future we're either going to be successful in what we want to achieve or we're going to fail in what we want to achieve. So you can specify to me what you want to do if I'm successful, and you can specify what you want to do if I fail, okay? Like it could be if I'm successful, you give me a hug, right? If I fail, you punch me in the face, okay? It's essentially what a promise kind of is. From a technical point of view, it's basically an object where you can call something called then, which is basically a then you've been successful, then do something, and then there's obviously an error handle as well, so you can handle any error that's occurred. So from a implementation point of view, you either resolve a promise or you reject it. If you're successful, you resolve it. If you're not successful, you reject it. Okay? So I'll show you exactly how that's done using Angular. So I want to make sure I do this bit right. So I'm just going to double check my notes here. So for example, here's get players, right? We know we've got get players inside of our service. At the moment, we're just calling this .players, right? We're not doing anything else. But what we really want to do is we want to promise that one day in the future, where you may potentially get players, or you may potentially get an error. Okay, so that's where this promise fits in. This concept of a promise, and the promise, if successful, is returning a type of basketball player array. Okay. So how do I invoke this promise? Well, there's a few ways you can do it. You can go promise, and there's a whole vast library of these, but you could go promise.resolve straight away and do this, right? And this is just as valid, okay? So in fact, I'm going to save that. I'm going to come over to the component, and now you'll see there's an error with the component, and the reason is because this no longer returns a list of players, it returns a promise, okay? So because it returns a promise, you can't do this anymore. So what do I do? Well, on here, remember I said there's a then, right? There's also a catch, and the catch is the error, okay? So you can get the reason for the error and do something with it, and so on and so forth. But then there's this then, right? And basically with this, we can grab the players. So if we resolve successfully, which I just need to just quickly check. Yes, I did pass the players through. So you have to pass in the data that you resolve in order to get it on this side. So then we've got players. So we've got an object. We've got the players, and then we can go this dot players equals players, right? Because we resolved successfully. Right, that's what happens when we're successful. If you fail, like if we go catch, whoops, error, we can go console.log error, right? And that's kind of how you can handle, what happens when we get an error back from the service. Now, this will be much more helpful when we get to HTTP, because HTTP, you have situations where you send the data to the server and the server will return a success, which would be like a 200 OK, which if you don't know what that means, I'll probably explain it in a future video, or a return a 500 or a 404 or whatever, which indicates there's been some form of an issue. So if it returns a 200 status, it's most likely going to come here, as long as there's players. So you may need to make sure that the players that are returned actually does return something. And if there's anything else, then in this error you'll probably get a message saying what happened, okay? And then you can do whatever you want with that error. In this case, I'm just logging it. But what this is now this is an asynchronous operation. So if this takes a little bit of time, it means that the UI will not get hung, because it won't get hung up on what to do, and so on and so forth. And what happens is if you don't make it asynchronous, it means that if this takes like 5 minutes to get, or 5 seconds, 5 seconds to get, you can't do anything. You can't click anything, you can't do anything else. But now that I've made it a promise, and I've made the whole operation asynchronous, it means that it'll go and fetch the information behind the scenes, and while it's fetching, we can do other things like click add, and add stuff to this, and so on and so forth. Which I can actually demonstrate that now for you. In fact, I will do that. So, just to give you an idea, you can see, like, if I refresh this now, it comes up pretty much straight away, right? And the reason why it does is because it's in memory. But what if I add a delay to it? So I come over here. Instead of returning promise.resolve, if I go return new promise, right, and inside of here, right, inside of this promise here, I'm going to go resolve. So I'm going to pass in, and by the way, this resolve is basically what I have to use to call resolve on my stuff. I can't use like promise.resolve anymore. So I got a resolver, and then I got like basically a function. So again, I could explain all this, but this is an ECMAScript 2005 feature. It's basically called the arrow feature. In other languages, it might be known as a expression. I know in C# it's known as a lambda expression. But basically, it says here's a parameter basically to a function, and here's the body of the function that we're going to execute, at some point in the future, essentially. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go set timeout. And this is just simple JavaScript stuff. You may not have seen this before, but if you haven't, well, that's just a bit of bad luck. We're going to go resolve, and we'll pass in this dot players, like so, and then we'll go 2000, right? And I'll remove this line because it no longer makes sense. Right, so basically what I'm doing here is I'm returning a promise that within 2 seconds, or basically 2 seconds later, you're going to get a list of players on the screen, okay? So now if I come back to this, and I let it refresh, I'll refresh it. It's still coming up straight away. Why is that? That should not be coming up straight away anymore. That should now be coming 2 seconds later. Have I written this wrong? I think do I have to do that? Maybe that's what I have to do. I think that other line of code was not right syntactically. Yeah, see now you've got, so if I now click refresh, you'll see you're blank for a while, but I can still do things, and then suddenly it comes up. So this is like now emulating it coming back from a server that took a while, It's taking a while to load, and then eventually pops in, okay? So that's essentially the asynchronous aspect of the code. If people really want to, they can go and set timeouts on these other ones. And in fact, I'll just do it really quickly just to demonstrate how simple it is. So we come down to delete, and we'll go return new promise, and we're going to resolve, call that a function. So once again, I'm going to call set timeout. And we go, and we're going to body of information here. And after, we'll make it 1 second when we delete. We'll say delete's a little bit faster than fetching, which is usually the case. Because you're probably doing a scan when you're fetching. So basically here we're deleting a player, we're sending back a promise that probably within a second, we're going to be able to successfully delete that player. So what that will happen is when we click the delete button, you'll see nothing happen for a second, and then it will suddenly disappear, which is probably not the best form of action. But for now, because we're using in-memory, this is how it's going to work. When we get the HTTP, you'll see you'll have better performance at that point, okay? And insert player, we're going to do the same thing, except this time I'm just going to copy. Just going to copy this and then just cut this out and get rid of all this. Oops. Should be fine. Now the other thing I haven't done is I haven't returned a promise. Now when you could go void. Some people return void, but I prefer just to go any. It always seems to pass the validation issue. And up here as well, so we're going to return a promise of any. Right. Update, I'm not going to worry about it because obviously it doesn't do anything. So there's no point to run any. Technically we should be returning a promise. So what I'll do, just to be complete, we'll just go promise.resolve and pass nothing back and return that. Okay, so that's our service. Then we come over to the component and quickly we'll just go this dot that dot then. Now, because we're not really doing anything, we don't really need to action it. Like normally, if we were needing to do something else, we could do something else. Or if we needed to just you probably just handle the catch, to be honest with you, because then we don't really need to do anything else than what it's already doing. So we can go catch, or no, I'll leave it for this example. So we've got error, catch error, console.log error. Right, and we can just do the same. And you can see there's no errors in the other ones either, but to be complete, you really should add a catch and do something graceful. For this example, I'm just going to be logging it out, which we're not going to see because it's not going to fail, okay? But when we get an API in place, at some point APIs do fail, and you're going to want to know something about why it's failing, and generally you probably do more than console.log, but I'm just demonstrating the example of asynchronicity here. So we come back over, and finally we can delete. Now I said it would take a second, it did take a second. We click edit, we come in, we want to change something to 2, we submit, we know nothing's instantly, or that's going to instantly happen because we're not delaying it. Ad's a little bit delayed, so we'll go cat dog. So we'll see a slight delay here. The UI will go away, but then there'll be a delay coming up here. And that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to show in this video. So we learned a fair bit here actually. We learned how to create a service. We learned how to call methods on that service, and we learned how to inject it into a component. And then we went about looking at asynchronicity and basically how do we set that up in a component, and how do we handle things like when it's successful and when it fails with promises. And that will set us up for the HttpClient in the next video. So thank you everybody for listening, and I'll see you in that video. Bye for now.